Okay. Now our sharing tonight continues where we left off last night. And there was a sister who stopped me just now and said she couldn't come last night. She could only come tonight. And she can't come tomorrow. So she has asked me to come back and repeat yesterday and tomorrow's talk. However, I have to let you know that it's actually very expensive for me to come here. You know why it's very expensive? When I come here, Vincent got to prepare his place for me to stay. Sun Kiat has to send me here, send me there. And then Edmund has to fetch me for breakfast somewhere. And after that, Jun Xiang has to send me to have lunch and somewhere. And after that, what's his name? Where is Chao Loi? Chao Loi has to send me back to take a shower and then send me here. So you see how many human beings are involved in this process. And every one of them are working. They've got time. They've got their businesses. So you sum it up together, it's actually very expensive. So, okay, that's good. Well, at least I know Brother Jun Hyang learned something from last night. So again, if there's anyone in this hall who is seeing me for the very first time, please let me have the honor of giving you a copy of the book. All right? Anyone never been here before? First time seeing me? Hands up? Yeah, please. Okay. I've got another 2 more packs in my car downstairs, but in the rush from Brother Vincent's house to here, I forgot to bring my car key. We were rushing because we were late. So anyway, tomorrow I'll still be here, so I'll bring some more tomorrow. All right, let us begin for tonight. Yesterday we spoke about these topics. Who is the Buddha? Who is my teacher, the Buddha? We spoke about canonical records versus the legends that we are so familiar with. We discussed what are the 3 aspects of the awakening experience. The awakening experience from the aspects of the 3 periods of time, and from dependent origination, and from the 5 aggregates. And then we spoke about what are truths. What do we mean when we say this is a truth? And then we spent quite a long time discussing what is dukkha and why the understanding of dukkha is so important, because the understanding of dukkha is really what makes us start our search. So for today, we are going to begin carrying on from there. We're going to try and understand these few areas, why we are continuously in samsara. And I would like to ask, is there any physicists in this room? Any physicists in this room? You studied physics. Do you do quantum physics? No. Okay. You know, the reason why I ask is that I've been trying my best to meet a quantum physicist somewhere in time. Because if you understand physics, and especially quantum physics, you understand a lot of what the Buddha actually taught. All right? Some of the things the Buddha taught really require someone who understands quantum physics. If not, you can't understand. And I'll mention it a little bit. I was hoping there'll be somebody in here who is a professor of physics or quantum physics, and then we'll be able to have a good opinion. All right? But anyway, let's begin. Let's begin. And the first thing we want to discuss is this ceaseless energy conversion. Why did I use the word ceaseless energy conversion? Okay. It's because, as I said last night, one of the very important things is the understanding of the teaching of anatta. And the teaching of anatta is one of the most difficult teachings to truly understand. So, if you understand the teaching of anatta, then many things will suddenly become very clear, and congratulations, you're on the verge of enlightenment. But let me put it by reading to you this phrase from the Dhammapada, which the Buddha said on the night of his enlightenment. He said, "Seeking but not finding the house builder, I traveled through the round of countless births. Oh, painful is birth, ever and again. House builder, you have now been seen. You shall not build the house again. Your rafters have been broken down. Your ridge pole is demolished too. My mind has now attained the unformed nibbana and reached the end of every kind of craving. Now, we so often read the Buddha's words and we just say, okay, that's it. But the Buddha's words are extremely profound. He was really a very wise man. Here you will notice he referred to house builder. You built a house. Now, to illustrate, if I were to say that Mr. So-and-so is alive now in this room, and Mr. So-and-so is okay, he's not a bad man, he's a good man. He doesn't have that much understanding of the Dhamma, but he's nevertheless a good man. Then he passes away, and then if in the traditional understanding we say, oh, Mr. A has been reborn, and now he is in Malaysia or Singapore. He's reborn as another human being in Malaysia and Singapore. That's one example. Or another example, a little bit more dramatic, and we say, oh, poor Mr. A passed away, but, well, he's not been a very nice man. He didn't do things which most of us would like, and did a fair bit of things which disturb people. And then somebody say, oh, he has been reborn as whatever, dog, cat, whatever. Or somebody say, oh, so-and-so is a real saint, he did so many good things, and he's been reborn, and he's a Dewa now in some Dewa realm. So the common understanding, of course, is that Mr. A has died, Mr. A is now reborn, and Mr. A is now another human in Malaysia. That is common understanding. But if I were to ask you, is Mr. A, who has passed away now and reborn in, for example, Malaysia, is this Mr. A the same as the one who has been reborn in Malaysia? The reality is that they are two different things. So if Mr. A is not a very nice man and he has been reborn in a not so pleasant realm, is that person the same as this person? The answer is also no. Or the other good end has been reborn in a Dewa realm. Is it the same person? The answer is no. Because you have to understand that the Buddha knew about ecology 2,600 years before we all started studying ecology in school. He knew about recycling. He knew that every part of your body, every little aspect of you will be recycled when you die. Every atom in your body will be recycled. So basically, what happens to us when we die is that you are actually recycled. You become another being. That is why the word I shared last night on dependent origination, when we say you've got craving, then you've got attachment, and then what happens next is the word bhava. The word bhava literally, when translated, means becoming. You become something. So, if you look at this poem that I just read, house builder, you have now been seen. Your deeds, your karma, literally built another house. So to say that Mr. A, who has passed on, is completely different from the one that is reborn is not exactly correct, because the one that is reborn came to be because of what Mr. A did. But to say that that person is exactly the same as this person is also wrong, because they are not exactly the same. So if I give you an extreme example, if I were to pass away and I get reborn as a dog is a dog. I'm a man. I'm not a dog. Neither is a dog a man. But because of what I did in that poem that I teach you, 1950-something to 20-something, that dash, our karma, you have become something. So that's why the understanding of dependent origination will tell you, oh, you've got this step, this step, this step, then finally you've got craving, then you've got attachment, and then you've got bhava, which means becoming. That becoming leads to jati. You built a new house based on what you have done. So that new person is related to you in the sense that you constructed it. But that new person is not exactly the same as you. Now that is important to understand, because many of us have this misconception about transmigration. In fact, there was a venerable called the Venerable Sati. What an irony. His name is Venerable Sati, which means mindfulness. And he actually went around teaching everybody that, it is the consciousness which on death will become another new person. And then his fellow brothers, monks, and tried to correct him, and he refused. He said, no. And then they brought it to the attention of the Buddha. And then the Buddha actually tried to correct him and explain to him. And he still said, nope, it's the consciousness. And so you have this very nice discourse in which the Buddha explained that your consciousness is always changing. Consciousness is consciousness of something. So if you say this, then I'm conscious of this mic. There is always an object of consciousness. And consciousness is always changing moment to moment to moment. It is not something concrete which moves from point A, zoom, into point B. And that is what Sati taught. He said that it is the consciousness which moves zoop, zoop, zoop down like that. But the Buddha said, no, there is nothing concrete in your 5 aggregates. They are always momentarily changing. And what continues to the next is a flow, a process, an energy which carries on. So please remember, it is a house builder, and that house builder is our karma. You literally construct a new being. All right? In modern science, you are recycled. Okay? Every atom in your body is recycled. That 30-watt bulb in our mind, which is energy, is recycled. So many venerables have tried to teach by using various analogies. A common analogy is the prayer beat. Each beat, then the next beat, then the next beat. But that is actually not correct. And I actually learned that in Fo-Kwang-San, in Kaohsiung, where the Venerable explained to us that is wrong. Because in the beat, you still have a thread which is continuous. In the Buddha's teaching, there is no thread. A better analogy would be a river. A river, we see, is a concrete river flowing there. You have the river, Singapore River. But you have to realize you can never step into the Singapore River twice. The instant you step in, you jump up, and you step in again, it's actually a different river. That water has already followed past. Everything has changed. So similarly, we are like a river. We are a flow of endless energies going on ceaselessly, changing. The Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh gave another very brilliant analogy. He used the analogy of a cloud. He said, if you look at a cloud, and we say, yes, that's a cloud. And he gave the analogy by saying, does a cloud ever die? Well, to us, we look at a cloud, the cloud rain, and after that, no more. But he said a cloud never dies, because that cloud will merely fall as rain, becomes water. That water goes into our plants, our fruits, we drink it as drinking water, etc., etc., etc. So actually a cloud never dies. It merely transforms into so many different things. So similarly, we look at our 5 khandhas, or our 5 aggregate, as a solid thing and say, this is me. This is I. This is myself. And the Buddha said that this is one of the fundamental things which is wrong. There is no, this is I, this is what I'm becoming, or this is what I am, or this is myself. These are the 3 things the Buddha said is a fundamental error in our perception. So, if we look at the 5 khandhas, most of you are familiar that the 5 khandhas, as described in the First Noble Truth, as I shared last night, the 5 khandhas as described in the First Noble Truth is different from the Nama-Rupa that is described in Dependent Origination. Please remember that. They refer to 2 different things. But in the First Noble Truth, the 5 khandhas, what the Buddha said, Pancha Upadana Khandha, refers to name and form. Form as in Rupa, the word Rupa. Name, Nama, the process of our mind. And those of you familiar will know you have 5 things. you have the body, called the rupa. And then within nama, you have feelings, perception, volition, and consciousness. Okay? Or feeling, memory, volition, and consciousness. Now the Buddha made it very clear. These 5 are not separate things. They are connected and dependent on each other. And they are always, always changing. Never for a moment are they the same. And we say, let's give you an example. If you are to look at, for example, a cup. So everyone in this room has looked at this cup. And we say, yeah, this is a cup. Okay? So, for you to know that this is a cup, first you must have a body with an eye that is functioning. If you've got a body with no eyes, let's say you are blind, and I hold this cup up, you will have no idea that this is a cup. But because you have got a rupa with a sense base that's functioning, you can see, oh yes, this is a cup. But how do you know it's a cup? With a functioning body, with a functioning mind, you have consciousness of this cup. Right? But how do you know it's a cup? I'm sure if we bring an alien from some other planet and I raise my hand and look at this, he might say, what, is this a weapon or is it a radio or is it what? He wouldn't know this is a cup. So we know that this thing is a cup because we have a memory. That's how a cup looks like. Okay? And let's say if you are very thirsty, then you have a feeling. I like this. Give me the water. That's your volition. So within a split second of a sense base contacting a sense object, our 5 khandhas come into being. First, because you have a sense base, you got a sense eye, you got an object, you have a consciousness that there is something brown, something black with this shape. But because you have got perception, or in modern word, memory, you know, this is a cup. And then you will have feelings. If you're thirsty, you want it. You're not thirsty, you're neutral. And then you will have a volition, a reaction to it. So that's why the instant there is contact, the 5 khandhas come into being. All right? But we take this process as myself instead of seeing it as the arising and the falling of something that is seen by the eye. Okay? So the Buddha said very clearly, one of our fundamental errors is that we think that this nama rupa is ourself. And so now we have a sense that I am separate from the rest. This is mine. This is yours. This is what I am. This is what I will become. Okay? And we begin to cling to our body, to our feelings, to our memories, etc., etc. And it is this upadana khandha that gives rise to dukkha. The reason why it is through the khandhas is because everything in our world is perceived through nama and rupa. Everything is perceived through this function of nama and rupa. And we cling to various aspects of it. Just to give you an example of how we cling to a concept. In Malaysia, and I'm sure in Singapore, people are obsessive about freehold properties. You buy a property in Malaysia, freehold, it will cost you twice as a so-called leasehold property. So I live in a HDB flat in Johor Bahru. Okay? And people will say, hey, Dr. Wong, is yours a freehold or leasehold? I say, mine is a leasehold. Oh dear, it's not going to be worth much. And somebody else say, oh, I live in there. Oh, it's a freehold. And I say, where do you live? Oh, I'm living in the 10th floor of this condominium or whatever. Then I said, you're living on the 10th floor of a condominium. How do you have freehold on a piece of air? Because you are literally occupying just a space on the 10th floor. And yet we say, oh, it's my freehold property. All right? That is only a perception. Okay, let's give you another example. we buy a plot of land here. And we say, oh, yes, I bought this plot of land. This plot of land belongs to me. This building on this plot of land belongs to me. And we say, I've got concrete evidence. This is my title deed. Do you realize that this plot of land belongs to you based on this title deed? It's just because everyone in this room agree that with that title deed, this is your plot of land. So if you have a change of government, Kim Jong something takes over. And he refused to recognize that piece of paper. Do you still own that land? No. It is just purely by an agreement among us that, oh yeah, this condo belongs to Brother Vincent. If all of us disagree, or Kim Jong something takes over, that's the end of his condominium, because all he has is a piece of paper which says, I own it. So it's very conceptual. Now, it's the same thing as far as the Buddha is concerned with regards to our identity or our ego. Yes, we perceive that I am Eddie, but Eddie is always changing. If you don't believe, ask Eddie to show you his photograph when he got married. And compare with the Eddie in front of you. It's two different persons. So where is that Eddie? Was it the Eddie of when he got married, or the Eddie today? Or the Eddie of 20 years where he will be much older? We are always changing. There is no permanent being. So as I shared, let me find my notes. Yes, that's it. This is why the understanding of this tonight is so important. Because now we have to understand, why was the Buddha so keen to make sure that we understand this very clearly? The reason being, this is the primary cause of our dukkha. Now, you have to understand many things. First, the word anatta is often translated as no soul, non-self, not self, or no self. It comes from the word atta or atman, and you add the word a in front, it means no. Okay? Now, what has been existent at the time when the Buddha lived 2,600 years ago was that among the community then was a very common belief, as it is today, because of man's greed for eternalism, because of man's greed for eternal life in a heaven with 72 virgins. Nobody's laughing, okay. They want to be told that there is something eternal in me that can never be destroyed. Vice versa, on the opposite direction, even if you burn the poor chap in hell for eternity, he still cannot be destroyed. That's why you can burn in hell for eternity according to them. What else can you burn in eternity unless it's something indestructible? Okay? So, this was a commonly held belief then, as it is now, that there is something, don't know what thing, but something, which is different from the body and mind. That means the body dies, the mind dies, but yet there is something which goes on to form the next or occupy the next. This is an eternal essence that by definition is an essence that cannot change and is indestructible. What is called atta. So when the Buddha looked and looked and looked, he was very clear that there is no such atta. That what you have, as science will tell you, is an eternally, ceaselessly changing process. So as long as we fail to see ourselves as a process or as a movement or as ceaseless arising and sensations of feelings, thoughts, etc., etc., you are not going to understand this concept of anatta. And you're not going to break this mental prison. So it is very difficult for people to break out this habit because we always think of ourselves as separate, as a mind and a body that is independent and separate. Okay? And that is why you will find so many people ask the Buddha this question. If there is no persisting entity, no unchanging principle like a self or a soul, then what is it that experiences the results of the deeds here and hereafter? And that is what I was trying to explain for the last 20 minutes. That you are a process that endlessly is created. Just like if you look within this life, what you are now is a process that you created when you went to school, when you got married, or you decided to be single, or you decided to have children, that has given rise to what you are now. Every one of those decisions have created a different you. Imagine if those of you in this room who are married made a decision that I do not want to get married, that you today would be completely different. Okay? Or, of course, the other way around. Okay, we are always recreating ourselves in every moment. Okay? Okay. BF hasn't paid their antivirus. So, you will also find, because of this, another common question that people will catch the Buddha and ask, what happens to the Buddha after he dies? Does he exist? Does he not exist? Etc., etc. Because people then, as people now, as we are in this hall now, can only think in these two dualities. Do you exist? Eternalism. Do you not exist? YOLO. We cannot conceive of anything other than these two extremes. And the Buddha repeatedly in his 45 years of teaching say, both extremes are wrong. Okay? So, is the doer of the act another, or the same person who reaps the results in the succeeding birth? To say that he who sows is absolutely the same as he who reaps is one extreme and wrong, as I explained earlier. To say that he who sows is completely different from he who reaps is also wrong, because one is created by the other. We give rise to the other. Remember, we are the heirs of our karma. Your karma creates you. That's why another part the Buddha said, you are the heirs of your karma. Okay? Sister looking at me very seriously, so I don't know whether she understand or not understand. I get worried, when they look at me very seriously. So the simple reason for this is what you and I call life is a flow of physical and mental processes of energies arising and ceasing constantly. Ask any physicist, he will tell you the exact same thing. Okay? Thus, it is not possible to say that the doer himself experiences the results, because that doer is always changing at every moment of his life, because it is a continuous process. The child that we were is not the same as the adolescent, nor is it the same as the adult. But the child gave rise to the adolescent, who gave rise to the adult. If you can extrapolate that one more step beyond, you understand what the Buddha was trying to tell you. We're on not ahead, so very good. So this is something to me is important, because in the funeral services that I conduct, for example, and I've shared this many a times, even with brothers and sisters in the EXCO, in ECG, etc. I have done many weddings. In weddings, people are so happy. Oh, we never knew there's such a thing as a Buddhist wedding. This is so good, so refreshing. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, thank you so much. Then after that, you never see them again. It's the same thing I'm told in Indonesia. In fact, they disappear because now they got married and pregnant and they've got no more time to come. Okay? So as far as I'm concerned, the cost effectiveness of the investment in a wedding is very low. But in all the funerals that I have done, especially when the family is very grieved, for example, in a sudden death, where it's very difficult to accept, and we did the funeral service. Or in people who are very close to someone they love, and we did the funeral service. And we explained to them at the funeral, we did what needs to give them what we call the gift of abhaya. In a death, people are scared. What is going to happen to me? Most people are thinking along that, believe it or not. What's going to happen to me now that my husband has passed away, or this has passed away? People still think in terms of atta. What's going to happen to me? Don't die, don't die. What's going to happen to us? Or the opposite. What's going to happen to you? Don't die, don't die, don't die. There is always fear. And one of the things you offer at a funeral service is the gift of abhaya. People have fear. People are confused. You give them that gift I am here with you. I am here to assure you, etc., etc., etc. Some members tell me, hey, Dr. Wong, we don't know what to say when we go there. I say, you don't have to say anything. Just go there, hold the relative's hand. That's good enough. It's the gift of abaya. And in all the funerals that we have done, most of the people that we have helped have become very good Buddhists. They've come to Metta Lodge to help. They've come to whatever they are to help. Because in a funeral, you are looking at dukkha. You are looking at anicca. You are looking at anatta right in front of your eyes. And as Venerable Mahachara, our resident venerable, we now have a resident venerable in Metta Lodge. He used to travel around the whole of Malaysia, but lately his health was poor. And he was very sick just a month or two ago. So the few doctors among us in Metta Lodge certified that he cannot travel anymore because he's not in good health. So now he has become our default resident venerable. To all the other centers, he's not fit to travel. He must stay in Metta Lodge. So we got. And so because he's there now, all the funeral services we have a venerable. So that the family can do something on behalf of the deceased. They can offer robes on behalf of the deceased. They can offer dana on behalf of the deceased. They can offer whatever they feel comfortable on behalf of the deceased. And, as Venerable said, one act of metta is better than 1,000 times you sit there and say, may Vincent be happy and well. May Vincent be happy and well. One act is better than 1,000 times you sit there saying, may Vincent be better and well. All right? So the ones that we help, we share with them, look, I know you love your mummy very much. And you are very sad that your mummy has died. But that is only what you and I perceive. We see birth, we see death. And our vision is limited to a dichotomy of this and this because we associate mummy with the nama and the rupa. But once you understand that mummy is not a form that is imprisoned by that body that is very sick or by that mind which is growing feeble, you will realize mummy has not died. And I always tell them the analogy of a cloud. And I always share with them, mummy's DNA is in all your family members. Her teachings, her love for you, her metta, everything is in all of you. She actually lives in all of you. And of course, with that dash that we understand, mummy's karma is good. Why are you worried? There's nothing to worry. You only worry if someone bad dies. If someone is good, there's nothing to worry. Because, as the Buddha said, I am not the form. I am not this body. I am not this feeling, this perception, this volition, this consciousness. And people feel very reassured. And they come back and they literally dedicate their lives to the sasana. So, of course, I hope that not every one of us have to go through such traumatic things to see dukkha, anatta, anicca. You can just listen to somebody and don't have to go through this painful process. But these painful processes are really what the Buddha called the divine messengers. They are the divine messages coming right to your door, knocking on it and say, hey, look, this is anicca, this is dukkha, this is anatta. This is the first noble truth. Because one very common lesson, according to legend, is after we die, then somebody apparently judges us. Then we say, you never tell me how I know. All right? And here the Buddha said the divine messengers. They are there every day, he said, telling you. Just that you refuse to listen. So, I hope that every one of us don't have to go through such traumatic processes. We can also learn it in theory from listening. That is why the Buddha said we are all savakas. So the three aspects of self, when we talk about anatta, it has three aspects. And this is not I say, this is what the Buddha taught. There are three aspects of this teaching called anatta. And the first aspect is this is myself. That means you see this body, these thoughts as myself. That means you identify you with that self, unchanging. The second one is a craving of I, the conceit of I. Now let me explain it further here, which makes it more simple. Okay? Etam mama, this is mine. That condominium is mine. That land is mine. This is my child. This is my whatever. Okay? We hold on to it. So, this I am. I am angry. I am happy. I am anxious. I am whatever. We hold on to that feeling as I am angry. And the third, this is myself, eso mi atta, self. That this nama rupa is myself. Now, if you correlate this with meditation, you will see that in meditation you are taught. When there is a feeling, when there is a sound, when there is a thought which arises, you are instructed to just note the arising of a thought, the arising of a sound, or the hearing of a sound, or the noting of a thought, or a feeling of pain in my leg. You are never told to deny it. You are told to acknowledge it and then let it go. But what you are always taught in meditation is to note hearing or a sound and then let it go. You do not say, oh, I hear a sound, or this is my pain, or this is my feeling. Because sometimes in meditation you are feeling anxious or happiness, whatever. You just note a rising of anxiety. Anxiety, anger, whatever that feeling is. You are told not to identify as my feeling, but a feeling. The arising of a phenomena, not the arising of my pain, my suffering. Why is this training? Why do we do this in meditation? We do it in meditation is because we are trying to reprogram your brain. We're trying to rewrite the software so that whenever there is a sensation that comes, it is identified as the arising of a phenomena, not my pain, my anger. Okay? Because we are conditioned to look at it the opposite way. Anything that arises, my thought, my feeling, I am angry. That's why the meditation teachers will teach you, you sense anger arising, but you need not be angry because you do not make it personal. All of us conditioned to look at it as mine. This is my, I am now becoming angry. Okay? Understand? Okay. You're my now stone, you know. So if you grasp to that, then you will lead to dukkha. Okay? Okay. So this I notion is a latent tendency within all of us, and you will understand tonight's is much more conceptual, because now you are moving to a different type of thinking. Okay? If it is so easy to break through this, all of you will be enlightened or awakened. Okay? So I'm going to fast forward a bit. This is supposed to be your homework. You have read all of this already. So now I'm going to show you this sutta called the Kamekka Sutta, which to me is a wonderful sutta. It's found in the canon, and it talks about a venerable Kamekka who was very sick. And we think he was probably an elderly venerable, and some other monks inquired about his health, and then he was told that, do you still take anything for self? That means the other monks who went to inquire about his health, the other monks, kepochi, you see, they want to know, is this venerable Kamekka enlightened or not enlightened? You know, like all of us, every speaker that comes, we also kepochi want to know, is he enlightened or not? Because if he's enlightened, then I offer dana to him, my merit very high. See, even in the offering of dana, we still think of self. We still have greed. We can never break away from there. All right? Isn't that true? I bring one run-of-the-mill unknown venerable, maybe 5 people will come offer. I bring another venerable, I say, hey, this one rumored to be Arahant. Wow, the whole hall will be full. Everybody wants to offer. Right? And that's because we still think, Arahant means very high merit, so must offer. Then after we offer, when did he eat the food I give or not? Right? We want to check, did he use the rope I offered or not? Okay, this is what we mean. So these other monks ask the Venerable Kameka, does he still take anything for self? And then when Kameka told them that he did not take anything for self, the other monks concluded, yes, Kameka must be an Arahant. Okay? So Kameka, however, honestly told this poor messenger, though friend I discern in the 5 khandhas of grasping, that is the nama rupa, no self nor anything pertaining to the self. That means he sees in his body and mind nothing that he can say, this is myself. Yet I do not say, that means he say that there's nothing in the body to be an eternal self. Yet he say, I'm not an Arahant. No, nor one in whom the defilements are destroyed. Remember yesterday I told you, the 3rd watch of the night, when the Buddha looked, he got rid of his defilements and understood the 4 noble truths. So when you say whether the defilements or the asavas are destroyed, that refers to awakening. Yet I see that I still got the idea of I am. I am angry, I am proud, I am happy, I am whatever. Yet I do not discern that I am this, I am. So this sounds complicated, so I got to explain. So when this poor Venerable Dasaka went to see Venerable Kaminda and inquired, he said, I do not see in any of my nama rupa an unchanging self. He understood 3 aspects of anatta. He understood this is not myself. But he said, I still have the understanding or the perception or the delusion of I am, ... Okay? What does this mean? So the Venerable Dasaka went back, reported to this, and then back and forth. And then he said, what is this? All this running back and forth. Fetch my staff. I myself will go see the Venerables. So he went down, all the usual greetings and all that. And as to this I am, friend Kameka, of which you speak, what do you mean by it? Do you speak of it as body or distinct as body, then feeling, perception, volition, consciousness, or distinct from consciousness? And Kameka replied, no, friends, I do not say I am body or feeling or perception or volition or consciousness, the 5 khandhas, or as distinct from them. That means he already has understood that this body, this mind is not myself. Though, friends, I see that I have got this idea of I am this, I am that, I am angry, I am happy in the 5 khandhas. Yet I do not discern that I am this, I am. Okay? Now, what does this mean? Long area here, it goes on. So instead of reading to you this whole long thing, which you are supposed to have read yourself, let me explain. So now we come back to these 3 lines. These 3 lines is very important, because if you understand this, you're going to be a Sotapan. What is a Sotapan? A Sotapan has broken 3 fetters. One fetter is he has already no more doubts that the Buddha's teaching is correct. The second fetter the Arahant has broken is that he has already broken the fetter of rites and rituals. He knows that rites and rituals is not the way to purification. And what is the third fetter? The third fetter that the Sotapan has broken is the will of a self. What Kameka is referring to. Because most people think that the body and the mind is myself. The Sotapan has understood, either in theory by listening. You will read in the canon many people who became Sotapans just by listening to the Buddha's teachings, and they understood. A good example, Anakondana. Just by listening to the Buddha, he understood. Yasa, a lay person, just by listening to the Buddha, he understood. Sariputta, just by listening to Asaji, He understood. Okay? So, the Sotapan has understood, in theory, as brother there doing physics will understand, that I am not this body, I am not this brain that thinks, that has memory, has that. This is an ego identity that I have created, and that conventionally we use, Brother Eddie, Brother Vincent, etc. A Sotapan's understanding is theoretical. That's why he's called someone who has entered the stream. He has put one foot into the stream. But there are still a lot of things that the Sotapan has not eradicated, including greed, including his anger. All right? Including so much more that only an Arahant can eradicate. Conceit, for example. Restlessness, for example. Greed for form realms, formless realms, for example. This only an Arahant can eradicate. So what the Venerable Kameka here is saying, that yes, if you ask me, do I still have a concept of myself? No. I do not see myself in the Nama and the Rupa. But I still have I am. He still has, I am going to be angry if you keep on asking this silly question. I'm going to be very happy, whatever. I'm going to be very agitated, whatever. And he still has, this is mine. Do you understand? The three aspects of anatta, if you truly can break through them, means you are an Arahant. Not only you have that theoretical understanding that I am not this self, that this Nama-Rupa is just a ceaseless flow of energy, but you have also got rid of your greed, your hatred, your conceit. Conceit must have a duality. I mean, you are conceit, proud, whatever, but there must be someone to compare. You know, what is there to be proud of? You're jealous. I mean, there must be a second person. So if I have to tell you, I am the Lord Thy God and I am a jealous God, then Brother Vincent will say, if you are the only God, who are you jealous of? Okay, so you say you are a jealous God, that means there must be other gods, isn't it? You know, why are you jealous? I mean, you're the only one existing in this world. What is there to be jealous of? There's nothing to be jealous of, right? So it is only the Arahant that can eradicate the other two aspects. So do you understand what Kameka is telling his brother monks? Yes, I have the understanding that this is not myself, but I still have I am. I still have this is mine. So he has actually indirectly acknowledged that I am a Sotapan, but I am no more than a Sotapan. Okay? So that's a very, very long explanation of the first question that I posed up. I'm not going to go through this. This is your homework. Okay? Sister Jenny says I cannot put this up too long because then everybody will be looking and no one will be listening. So that has to be stopped. Okay. So the rounds of ceaseless energy conversion occurs because we look at our Nama-Rupa as a self. We have ignorance, michaditti, that this is myself, wrong view. The Chinese word for wrong view or right view is actually a very, very interesting word. Brother Jun Hyang will be able to tell you. What is the Chinese word for right view? Zhen Jian. You take out my specs, I'm blind. I just tested my power today. Brother Chao Lai brought me is 800. So if you take out my specs, I'm legally blind, you know. So if I take out my specs and do anything naughty, I'm not liable. Okay? But what it means is this. The lady in the shop asked me, do you want to take a transition lens? You want to have blue filter lens and all that and all that and all that. You got different colors and all that. So if I let's say to take a blue filter lens, then everything will have a slight tinge of color. You have to take a brown color lens, and everything will look a slight tinge of brown. And I like many of the Chinese translations because they are actually very accurate. Because you have to understand that the Agamas are the translation of the Nikayas into Chinese. And when the Chinese people translated it, they were all done by monks. I don't know whether they were nuns, but the ones I know are all monks. And they were very, very respected, practicing monks. The English translations that we have credit to the great translators of the late 19th and early 20th century. Credit to them. But they were not monks. They were not nuns. They were all scholars of a Western background. So they translated based on what they understand in theory. So the agamas in Chinese are actually in many ways very accurate because these were practicing monks who knew what they were saying and not just translating in theory. So they translate samadhi as zhen jian. How do you see? If your spectacle has a distorted lens, the whole world is going to be distorted. If your spectacle has rose-colored tint, the whole world is going to be rose-colored tint. So that's why in miccha ditti, wrong view, your vision of the world is not what it really is. You are having a delusion. In Chinese, delusion is 贪嗔 what, 欺心, you know. That's a very strong word for michaditi. You literally 欺心, you know. You got to use the Cantonese word for maximum impact, you know. You really sort already. You're not seeing the world as it really is, but through a grossly distorted view. So the right view, of course, is very, very important. So if you have wrong view, then it's ignorance. And with ignorance, we will behave in a way which is not going to be completely correct. And here I got to go back again to dependent origination. Remember last night I drew, we begin with ignorance. And because of ignorance, you have the next step, sankhara. Sankhara, extremely difficult word to translate. In that context, many people take it as character trait, personality trait, the ways that we behave, the ways that we react. And then you've got consciousness, and then you got namarupa. That namarupa, as I said, is not the five khandas. That namarupa merely refers technically to all that you see. So if I see Brother Eddie, that's the rupa of Brother Eddie. All that I perceive in my mind, that's the nama. Okay, so you've got consciousness and namarupa. That's why in that namarupa, it does not have consciousness. The word consciousness already was in the third step of dependent origination. So you've got ignorance. From ignorance, we behave in ways which are either very right or not so right. Then we have, of course, our consciousness. And then we have all the things that we see, that we perceive, everything. There is contact with the basis, with the object. There is feeling. Once there is feeling, there will arise, I want it, I don't want it, I can't be bothered. So you have craving. With that, you have attachment. With attachment, when you demise, we have kama bhava or bhava, becoming. And then after becoming, you got birth, jati. And then after jati, the whole sequence of aging, sickness, death follows. So ignorance, craving, attachment, and karma becomes the four very important links that will give rise to these ceaseless rounds of energy conversion. So what am I trying to do in sharing here tonight is we are trying our best to do what we can to help another person. And how can I help another person? I can't transfer karma, neither can you transfer karma. If I can transfer karma, on my will I write all my bad karma I transfer to BF. You can't. Okay? Can I cut down your attachment for you? I can't. That's your attachment. How can I reduce it for you? What about craving? Sister Veron loves the Tua Tau in Johor Bahru. How can I cut down Sister Tua Tau's craving? I can't. But what can I do? I can help you reduce ignorance. And that's why Dhamma Dutta work is so important. Because in doing Dhamma Dutta work, we are actually giving the gift of the Dhamma. And then we say, what Dhamma? Very profound word. Actually, the gift of the Dhamma merely means the gift of reality, of nature, of truth. That's all. And when we give this, we hope that we can lessen our ignorance. Once you can lessen your ignorance, to quote Brother Tan, with education, there will be cultivation. With cultivation, there will be transformation. So to help another person, I can only help with the first part, the education part. Now, whether you want to cultivate, I cannot do anything. I have always told, when Brother Chongjin, where you visited my daughter when she was sick, I wrote to Chongjin and said, please talk to my daughter about Dhamma. Do you know it is so much easier for me to talk to you all about Dhamma than it is to talk to my auntie or my Sam Kuche or whoever. It's very, very difficult when it is your own relative. But when Chongjin sees my daughter, he can talk Dhamma to my daughter. And she understands. Papa has been talking from 20, 30 years, your same old song. All right? How many times, now only I realize that sometimes when I talk to my children, I say, how can I sound exactly like my mother? Right? Okay, I'm sure you guys have the same experience. I'll talk to them and say, hey, this kid is exactly what my mother told me, We don't appreciate it at that time. It's always like that. So, ignorance is not the first cause, but ignorance is a very important link in dependent origination. If we can reduce ignorance, we can reduce with cultivation our craving. Not to say that overnight it's going to disappear. No, the Buddha said his teachings is like the sea. Okay? It has the same taste, the taste of salt, but it's like the sea. That craving, only you with the understanding of the Buddha's teaching can slowly reduce. And I already can see that in the maybe 160 people in this room, your craving has probably been reduced. If not, you won't be here tonight. Honestly, you will be movies, karaoke, party, whatever. Why should you be here listening to one white hair man talk about this? So the very fact that you are here, you have already reduced your craving for sensual pleasures. Now, attachment. I told you last night there are 4 attachments that we have to let go of. That can only slowly be developed. Views, I told you, are very difficult to let go. Sensory attachments may be a bit easier than views. Rites and rituals is something I always say we actually can let go. And that's why at Metta Lodge, whenever they talk about rites and rituals, I always say I'm very allergic to rites and rituals. Sister Carol will know. I always say I'm very allergic to rites and rituals. Yes, we need it because people need it. But we have to realize that they are not the end. They are only a means to an end. And finally, the last attachment that's very, very difficult to let go, self. So even after you listen to me, many of you say, I cannot let how to let go. All right? And one example I learned is sometimes our children don't behave the way we want them to behave. Sometimes our children might do things completely opposite. One brother told me, my children, despite all that in the newspaper, still go to a certain harvest something. So then my usual word is 是这样的啦, you have to learn to let go. And why is that so important? If you can't even let go of that, how are you going to tell me I'm going to let go of this? If you can't even let go of that, you are never able to let go of this. Okay? So, now I'm going to read you more canonical things. If not, you will say we have distracted ourselves. Okay. So, now, I'm going to read you this. Whatever monks or Brahmins have described liberation from being to come about through the love of being. That means whatever people tell you that I became liberated through the love of eternalism or eternal life or eternal heaven, whatever. Okay? And whatever monks or Brahmins have described escape from this through non-being, YOLO. None, I say, have escaped. Through the essentials of existence, dukkha, with all its clinging exhausted, then dukkha is no more. That means the Buddha is saying, it is not through eternalism that you all believe in an eternal something or your belief in YOLO, then you are going to be the end of suffering or the end of dukkha. You can't. If you want that, then you have to break the chains of dependent origination. And one of the chains is craving. That's why the second noble truth talks about craving. Okay? Now, there we are. This is very important. Unfortunately, Chris is not here. Has he come back, Jenny? No, still not back. This is something very important. Please remember this. This was when the Buddha was enlightened, and he already had a significant number of Arahant monks. The first batch were all very brilliant people. They studied and they very quickly became enlightened. And now the Buddha allowed them to go out on their own to teach this message. So, just like before you all go for a trip, you all before the trip will have a briefing. And after the trip, you have a debriefing. The Buddha had that. Amazing, isn't it? He actually had all these Arahant monks who are going to go out, and he told them that now you are going to go out. And he began by saying, and I read, "Bhikkhus, I am free from all shackles, whether human or divine. You too are free from all shackles, whether human or divine. Go now and wander for the welfare and happiness of the many, out of compassion for the world, for the benefit, welfare, and happiness of gods and men." Look at this line. You too are free from all shackles, whether human or divine. What did the Buddha say? Human shackles, you all may understand. Oh yes, the shackles of caste, the shackles of being born a female and being limited by so many things that a female is not supposed to do, the shackles of racism, the shackles of all that we are familiar with. That we can understand. But it is the second word that the Buddha said which is very important. He said, you are free from all shackles, whether human or divine. You are even freed from all the so-called divine shackles. You can't work on Sunday. Well, actually, it's Saturday. Sunday is Roman creation. It's actually Saturday. That's a divine shackle. Okay? A divorced woman cannot get married. That's another divine shackle. There are lots and lots of divine shackles. I don't want to name them. I don't want to disappear suddenly in Malaysia. But there are lots and lots of divine shackles. Okay? So I'm not going to name them. But the Buddha was very clear. When you understand Dhamma, you are actually freed. You are not, oh dear, now I study Buddhism, I got another 5 precepts to keep us saying, no, you are freed. You understand it, you are freed. You are not only freed from human shackles, you are even freed from divine shackles. That's why the free thinker is the best Buddhist. First, you are freed from all human and divine shackles, and now you are allowed to think. Never surrender your intellect, the Buddha said. Of course, I paraphrased it. But never surrender your intellect. Always ask yourself, question. And this is important. The Buddha gave us the principle of ehipassiko. Look and see for yourself. Check to see whether it is true. Only if it is true, then you accept it. And that's why yesterday night we say, oh, impermanence, is it true? Dukkha, is it true? Anatta, is it true? See it for yourself, and when it is true, then only you accept it. Now the Buddha's words are very, very profound. That's why you can spend a lifetime studying. Let me give you the first verse of the Dhammapada as an illustration. The first verse of the Dhammapada was what made me a Buddhist. Okay? I was searching, and I read the first verse of the Dhammapada, and I said, this is amazing. I spent 10 years of my life studying another religion, and I still felt unhappy with what I read. In fact, the more I read, the more unhappy I became. But when I read the Dhammapada, it was amazing. What does the first word say? The first and second verses is the Yamaka, is the pairs. It says, mind is foremost. Mind is chief. If you do something unwholesome, it will follow you like the cart that follow that buffalo's hoofs. Second verse. Mind is foremost. Mind. Mind is chief. If you do something wholesome, it will follow you like a shadow that never leaves. So everyone in this room say, yeah lah, true I agree understand logical But do you know how profound are these words? Imagine the good deeds that all of us have done in this room. Every one of you have done good deeds in this room. If not, again, you won't be here. Okay? You have no toothache now. How many of us are grateful that we have no toothache now? None. Only when we got toothache, start looking for dentists. Before that, we hate the dentist. Okay? Right? Now, it says, if you do something good, it follows you like a shadow that never leaves. How many of us in this room are aware of our shadows? I can categorically say none. None. The shadow is taken for granted. We never appreciate the shadow. But the good deeds that you have done follows you like a shadow that never leaves. We all take the good things that we have for granted. You know, I have patients, 51 years old. Oh, I'm so sorry, uncle, but you have diabetes. Why me? Why I have diabetes? I say, for 51 years you didn't have diabetes, you know. Right? Think of that poor child with diabetes at 20 years old. You got 51 years, you don't have anything, now you're complaining, why me, you know? Right? Now, what happens when you walk into a dark room? What happens when you switch off all the lights in this room? What happens to your shadow? It disappears. Even the best among us, if we decide to do something unwholesome, that wholesome things that follows you disappears. But it's all right. You can always do wholesome things again and come back into a bright room. And you have a shadow. Now think of the ox that pulls that cart. It's like we pulling a cart. If I had to give you a cart to pull, at every minute we'll be grumbling. Wow, you're so heavy lah, so hot lah, so painful lah. We grumble endlessly over all that unhappy things that we have. Right? The Buddha said it's like the ox pulling a cart in the heat, in the Indian road, which is usually not a road but a mud track. Okay? So when you look at the examples that the Buddha chose, actually so profound. We complain endlessly about what we think are things which should not happen to me. But we never take the good things and say thank you for it. All right? So these are just an example of how profound the Buddha's teachings are. And as I said, oh dear, now you have been freed. Then someone right now will say, but what about the 5 precepts? And I got to keep these 5 precepts. You know, I can't kill, I can't steal, I can't do this, I can't do that. In the Buddha's teachings, it's very clear. It's always cause and effect. There is no such thing as sin in the Buddha Dhamma. There is only cause and effect. You create a cause, there will be an effect. Are you willing to accept that effect? If you are willing to accept the effect, go ahead and kill. But you don't complain when you have that effect. So the 5 precepts do not in any way hinder you. They actually protect you. And I've shared this even in this same hall many a times. You go to Wat Ananda, at the entrance you see a Buddha image. On the other side of the door, another Buddha image. All right? I'm sure you're familiar. The Buddha image standing with the hand like that. The other side, another Buddha image standing with the hand like that. You'd ask the older generation, what does that Buddha image mean? It means protection. It's called the Abhaya Mudra. Fearlessness. You're protected. And I always ask people, how does a wooden statue, 4 feet tall, standing at the corner of a temple protect you? Come on, common sense will tell you it's not going to protect you. Ajahn Chah gave the example, if you really want protection from an amulet, take the one here. Stand behind it. No bullet will reach you. Right? So what is this mudra of protection? He's literally telling you, if you want to be protected, keep the 5 precepts. Because you are protecting yourself from one very dangerous person, yourself. No one, the Buddha said, can harm you as much as this can harm you. He said, not even your relatives, not even your enemies. You can harm yourself more than anyone. So by keeping the 5 precepts, you are actually protecting yourself from unwholesome things. They are like what we call the traffic lights. You see a red light, if you insist on crossing at the Alexandra Junction and you get knocked, don't blame anybody but yourself. You see a green light, please proceed, etc., etc. All the 5 precepts are secular. There is nothing religious in the 5 precepts at all. Not to kill, not abstain from killing, abstain from stealing, abstain from sexual misconduct, abstain from lying, bad speech, gossiping, etc. Abstain from anything which intoxicates your mind. Tell me, what religion is that? They're entirely secular. Its aim is to protect you. Then, of course, my medical students, being very smart, when I teach them this, they will say, but Dr. Wong, we only take a little bit for birthday. Little bit only. Then I tell them, how many medical students are in your class? This batch, the year 3, has 93 medical students. So I say, how many weeks are there in a year? 52 weeks. So how many birthdays do you have on average a week? 1 to 2. Okay? So I say you have a birthday party celebrating the 21st birthday every week at least once, if not twice. So every week also a little bit. Then is it little bit only, Dr. Wong? Then my famous question, of course, is I point to the girl nearest to me and I say, can you be a little bit pregnant? Now, of course, you say, hey, how cannot be a little bit pregnant? Well, I said, it's exactly like that. Can you be a little bit pregnant? You can't. You're either pregnant or you're not pregnant. And then if you're pregnant, you become bigger, 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 bigger. All right? So these precepts do not tie you down. They, in fact, liberate you. They liberate you from the bad things that might potentially happen to you. All right? Now, you know that the Venerable Sariputta became a Sotapan just listening to one stanza from the Venerable Asaji, one of the first 5 disciples. And that stanza is well known to every one of you. It says, the perfect one has told the cause of causally arisen things, and what brings their cessation to. Such is the doctrine preached by the great monk. In modern word, what Asaji said is, the Blessed One, the Buddha, taught about cause and effect. Remember last night I told you the 3 things that he absolutely rejected? That everything is predetermined, that you can't change. He said, no, that's wrong. Second, everything is due to some divine being. He said, no, that's wrong. That everything is random. He said, no, that's wrong. Instead, the Buddha said, and what science will tell you, that everything has a cause which, given the condition, will lead to an effect. And that is a fundamental principle of modern science. And that is what the Buddha said to the first 5 disciples, who subsequently repeated it to Sariputta. And what Sariputta knew when he heard that is, all that is subject to arising is subject to cessation, cause and effect. So, now I'm going to fast forward a little bit here, and I'm going to tell you this. Okay. Now, do you know how lucky we are to be able to listen to all this? The Buddha said that he does not have any quarrels with the world. Any wise man, the Buddha said, can look and see a nature, impermanence. Any wise man, the Buddha said, can look and even see dukkha. All right? Dukkha as in what I explained last night. But what the Buddha said is that what people will not be able to see is anatta. Because we are all so attached to this self. Okay? It takes a Buddha to discover anatta. So how many Buddhas are there? Remember I told you on the night of his enlightenment in the first watch, when he looked back, he saw 91 yawns of time. 91 big bangs, big collapse, big bang, big collapse. One big bang to a big collapse is estimated 30 billion years. That's a very, very long time. So how many Buddhas were there? What you learn from legend are many, many Buddhas. Cannot beat the Mahayana, they got 108. The Theravada got less, but nevertheless still a lot. But how many Buddhas did the Buddha, our Buddha himself, teach and say? In the 91 yawns that he could see on the night of his enlightenment, 91 big bang, big collapse, 91 times 30 billion years, he only can see that there were 6 Buddhas. Only 6. And I will read to you. 91 yawns ago was the Buddha Vipassi. After that, 31 yawns ago. That means there were 60 yawns in which there was no Buddha. 31 yawns ago, the Buddha Siddhi, and the Buddha, this name very difficult, Vesabu. Okay? Then this yawn. I mean, another 30 billion years. 30 yawns times 30 billion years. This yawn now. We are considered a very, very lucky yawn. From Big Bang of this circle, we have had 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 Buddhas. The Buddha said, in this same auspicious age, the Blessed One, Khona Gambana, the Blessed One, Kassapa, okay, Kakusandra, Khonagama, Kassapa, and our Buddha, Gautama. So I'm going to read you the name of all the 6. 91 years ago, Vipassi. 31 yawns ago, Sikhi. 31 yawns ago, Vesabu. Then this yawn, Kakusandra. Then Khonagama. Then Kassapa. 6 previous Buddhas. Then our Buddha, Gautama. And the future Buddha, Maitreya. Maitreya, the word Maitreya is the same as metta. It's basically the word metta. So we are considered to be living in an extremely auspicious yawn, whereby the teachings of the Buddha is still extant, available for all of us. We do not know when the next Buddha will come, Maitreya. We don't know how long. And after that, we have no idea how long more. So we are actually living in a very auspicious yawn. And so, if you are to ask, can I be enlightened in this life? Can I awake in this life? Then I will say that the question is wrong. The question should be, do you want to be awakened in this life? Because the reality is, most of us do not want to be awakened in this life. And that's what tomorrow's talk is about. The reality is, many of us do not want to be awakened in this life because we love our attachments, we love our sensual pleasures too much. We do not want to let it go. Because if truly you say among you, somebody who raises his hand and say, yes, Dr. Wong, I really want to be enlightened in this life, you will actually probably renounce and be a monk or a nun. And if you really tell me that I want to be enlightened, awakened in this life, I'm willing to give up all those upadanas, all those attachments, then I will say, if you go home today and you see on your door a note left by your husband which says, dear so-and-so, I'm so sorry to tell you this, but I have run away with our maid to Bali. And if you really want to be awakened in the life, you will write back and say, I am so happy you found someone who can make you happier. Go with my blessing. Then I know you really want to be awakened in this life. You really have reached the ability to say, I let go. But most of us are not ready. Most of us will get a gangster and break his leg in Bali. So, I'm going to just now share with this. Okay. Yes. So, of course, the next question after I've shared with you all this, is you're going to ask me, Then Dr. Wong, please, you still haven't answered that one question. Does the Buddha exist after death or not? Okay, I will summarize the whole thing by saying one thing, what the late Venerable Dhammananda said. Yes, the Buddha exists in your mind. The Buddha lives on in your mind. Not outside, but in your mind. And why is that so important? A word I asked Brother Jun Hyang to write in bold, put up in here. 佛在心中，心中有佛。The Buddha is not outside. The Buddha is in your mind. If you think that the Buddha is outside, then your understanding of the Buddha's Dharma is a little bit michaditi. That's why it's 佛在心中. Sin referring to here, not this. 佛 is in your mind. 心中有佛. Every one of you have the potential to be awakened. 佛在心中，心中有佛。佛性. All of us have 佛性, which is what Brother Jun Hyang write for my clinic. 佛性. These are very nice words, very beautiful calligraphy, but you must understand what is behind it. Why? Now I'm going to tell you a Zen story which is going to shock many of you. But since I've shocked so many of you last night, what difference does it make? Might as well shock you a little bit more. You would have heard this Zen teaching, which is actually very profound. Not taught to beginners. Only taught to those almost near to awakening like you all. And it tells of a venerable who sat dutifully in meditation for months and months and years and years. And every few days he will report to his master what his progress in meditation is. And then one day he reported to the master, "Oh master, in my meditation, I saw the Buddha. And he was there standing with his arms open to welcome me." What did the master tell him? Jun Hyang will know. What did the master tell him? 见佛. What's the other two words? I'm sure you know, you're just too embarrassed to say such a rude statement. I heard a whisper from there. 见佛, 杀佛. So you say, "Yo, why so rude one, the master?" But the master is not rude. He's trying to break a fundamental misconception in his student. Chan teachings are very much like that because they believe that words great difficulty to teach you. Very, very difficult. So they have to give you statements which shock you to make you realize it yourself. He said, 见佛, 杀佛. Why? Because the student in his meditation is still thinking of an external being who is going to bail him out. He's still thinking, 佛不是在我的心中，佛在外面. He's still thinking of an external being. He still hasn't grasped the concept, 佛在心中，心中有佛. And he still has an image. How did he know that that person he saw is the Buddha? I told you last night. Even the gatekeeper in the park cannot recognize that this is the Buddha when he walked in. How do you know that the person there is the Buddha? It's completely your imagination. Completely a concept in your mind. Remember last night I shared with you how the Buddha went to visit 3 venerables and the gatekeeper said, "Nope, you can't come. Don't disturb them." And the venerable had to run out and say, "Oh, no, this is our teacher." Even the gatekeeper doesn't know that that's the Buddha. How do you know this image you have in your mind is the Buddha? If you say he looks like that, then it's purely a projection of your own mind. And that's why the Buddha, how he looks like, as I keep on telling you, we actually don't know. This is an icon. This is like the Apple logo. So in that Zen teaching, The master is trying to teach him, you are now still dependent on an external thing that you think is going to come and bail you. You have to realize you have to get rid of that dependence. Because remember, the Buddha said, even in our Theravada Suttas, when you cross the river, do you carry the boat with you? No, you leave the boat behind. Even that image of the teacher will become the final hindrance to your awakening. You still have not understood anatta. That's why this statement, 见佛, 杀佛, because you are not seeing the Buddha, our teacher. You are seeing something that you have created in your mind which you think is the Buddha. All right? Shocking, isn't it? But it brings you to a different level of understanding. And Zen is very much like that. You have to be shocked to realize something. Oh, yes, that's true. Another common Zen teaching. There was this man who approached another master and said, oh, master, please tell me the essence of the Dhamma so that I can be awakened. And the master said, please wait. I need to go to the toilet and pee. What has that got to do with the fellow guy? Okay, go to the toilet and pee. So he walked. Halfway, as he walked to the toilet to pee, he turned around and he said, something so simple as peeing, I have to do for myself. Can you pee for me? You can't. There is no one who can tell us this is the secret. You chant this 300 times a day, that's it. He said, no, you have to realize it yourself. Okay, another story that I like very much. Actually, I've got all these on videos, but we'll be here until midnight if I have to show you all, so I won't. Another one that I really loved. So this student went to see this great Chan master, and he said, oh, master, you have taught me so much. And they talked until it was very, very late into the night. And this student was so enthusiastic, he wanted some more. And then the master said, okay, it's enough. I think it is time we both rested. And then the student said, yes, master, thanked him profusely, and he stood up to turn around. But then, of course, in China in those days, there's no electric lights. And so there was no lights, and it was pretty dark. Then the master said, oh, yes, it's pretty dark. Let me give you a light to help you light the way. After all, you have learned from me one whole night. So he took the candle in the candle holder, and he gave it to the student. Oh, yes, the student. He took it, received it with great ceremony, and said, thank you, I'm ready to go now. And what did the master do? He blew out the light. And that student became enlightened. What is the story behind this? I can tell it to you. I can share my understanding with you. I can give you the light of the Dhamma. But ultimately, it is only you who can use the Dhamma to walk your own way. I can give it to you. I can give all these books to you. But it's not going to serve any purpose because you have got to walk yourself. Okay, so I like Zen very much because these stories actually help us, but of course they are not suitable for everyone. They're only suitable for a candidate who has reached that level of understanding. So you can't have a beginner in Buddhism come in here and I give him a candle. The guy will never come back. He'll probably send me to Woodbridge or something. So now you understand why science is so important to anatta, because I'm going to end with one very important statement. We live in an era after the Big Bang called the space-time continuum. I'm sure you heard that word. We are living in an era after the Big Bang started, one microsecond after the Big Bang started. And then we have this thing called a space-time continuum, where now we have a concept of space and a concept of time. But in physics, they have another concept beyond the space-time continuum, which I have absolutely confounds me. That's why I'm still waiting to meet the first quantum physicist to please say, can you explain to me? Because there is this concept that things can be beyond the space-time continuum. Do you know what is described as beyond the space-time continuum? Nibbana. That's for tomorrow. Okay, we'll be talking about that tomorrow. I've already spoken about this flow of energy. I've already spoken about why the understanding of anatta is so crucial to breaking dependent origination. I've spoken about awakening process. I've spoken about these endless rounds of samsara due to recycling. And I've given you a little touch of Nibbana, hoping to tempt you to come tomorrow to see what am I going to talk about Nibbana tomorrow. And I'm going to end here tonight. Again, of course, we welcome discussion and questions. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Okay, any questions? Well, all awakened already.
My job is done. I don't have to come to Buddhist Fellowship Singapore anymore. Thank you very much. Tomorrow night is the third part of this sharing. As I said, I'm actually compressing 1 year of sharing in Metta Lodge into 3 nights. Okay, in Metta Lodge, this whole thing is stretched over 1 whole year. So thank you for giving me the opportunity. I will be going home immediately after the talk tomorrow night. Okay, can't let my wife be alone for too long in Johor Bahru.
But you can come again and elaborate more.
Yes, sister. Okay. Yes. Okay, very good. Thank you, sister. Okay. Okay. Now in the first Noble Truth, as we shared last night, the Buddha gave birth, aging, sickness, death, and sorrow, lamentation, etc., association with those you don't like, dissociation with those you like, and then he ended up by saying, Pancha upakanda, Pancha upadana kanda dukkha. The clinging to the 5 aggregates causes dukkha. And I've also shared just now that it is via the 5 aggregates that we actually experience the world. Everything in the world is experienced by our 5 aggregates. That means the body with my sense base, I have consciousness, I have feeling, I have memory, I have etc. So literally our nama rupa is what gives us the ability to function and to interact and to perceive what is in our world. So in that first noble truth, when the Buddha talked about the pancha means 5. Upadana means grasping or clinging. Kanda, we are referring to nama, rupa, and this subset divided into 4. Feeling, vedana. This is perception, sanya or memory in modern English. And then you have volition, how you respond when you come into contact with something, and consciousness. As I said, and the Buddha said, that you cannot break this up. That means you cannot say, oh, this is me, this is me, this is me, this is me. Okay? Many people say, oh, consciousness is me. The Buddha said you can't break it up, because at any time when you come into contact with a sense object, as long as you have a sense base, that means your eye, your ear, your nose, your tongue, your sensation, okay, all these sense bases, the instant you have the consciousness of a sense object, let's say a durian. I put up a durian here, you look and you see, oh, that's a durian. So you have eye, consciousness, seeing a durian. You have smell, I smell a durian. Okay? So the instant you have consciousness, these 4 comes into play immediately. You will have, of course, a perception that, oh, this is a durian. Or you have feelings. Oh, I love durians. I hate durians. Okay? And of course, what are you going to do? You love durians, you want to eat it. You hate durians, you walk away. So these will be triggered within a microsecond of you coming into contact. One of our training in meditation is to train such that in the feeling, only the feeling, not my feeling, not your feeling, but only the feeling. In the thinking, only the thinking. That's why in meditation you are trained. When a thought arises, just identify thinking. The content of the thinking, immaterial. Do not invite the thinking to tea. Just see thinking. So in the feeling only. In the hearing only. In the whatever, only that. So this is what we train in meditation, so that we do not identify it as I, my, mine. Okay? So this is the first, what I call the classic Nama and Rupa. And now in dependent origination, you have got ignorance. Then you have got sankara. For lack of a better word, I will not translate it. Okay? But often translated as character trait, personality trait, behavior traits, how we behave. Then you have consciousness. Then you have nama and rupa. And this is where the confusion starts, because many people think this nama rupa is this nama rupa. Okay, this nama rupa is not talking about the 5 khandhas. This nama rupa is merely talking about the things that you perceive as a rupa and the things that you feel. Anything that you feel or perceive or sense is a nama rupa, a psychophysical functionality. So what is its definition here? As I said, the thing which will strike you is, why is there a word consciousness here? Because if you're looking at it as the classic one, consciousness is part of this. But this is not part of this. This, in fact, has a few things. It has feelings. It has perception, sanya. It has choice, chetana. So this is in common. And it has contact, faso. And it has attention, manasikara, faso. So this actually describes a function that has resulted. It is not describing what you are. You understand? This one is describing what you and I take as Brother Chongjin. The nama rupa that we give a label, an ego identity, a name. This one, that's why consciousness is separate. This one, this is not the 5 khandhas. This is merely, as the words say, psycho-physical phenomena. All the psycho-physical phenomena that if you combine all this will be what? If I am a conscious man, I will see, I will hear, I will feel, I will touch, I will whatever. Okay, to quote one of my brother and sister, one brother and one sister in Metta Lodge, he says, this will refer to all phenomena that is experienced by us. Clear? So actually the confusion is, we think this refers to khandhas, but it's not actually referring to the khandhas. That's why if you look at the definition breakdown, they will actually give you this. Okay, it's not the same as this. But as I said last night, this is actually not that important for us to understand in minute detail. This is really actually quite academic. You don't actually need this, because the most important ones, as I said, is 1, ignorance. We have to break it at that chain of ignorance. 2, craving. 3, attachment or clinging. And 4, bhava, which is basically conditioned by our karma. K-A-M-M-A. These are the 4 areas that we can do something actively every day to reduce. We can reduce our ignorance by learning from someone about the Dhamma. We can reduce our craving progressively. We can reduce our attachment. And we can make sure that what we do from the year 1959 when I was born to whatever year that I pass away, that dash is basically our karma. Everything that we do, good, bad, not so good, not so bad, that's all our karma. Because that karma is what gives rise to becoming, which is what I was trying to explain at the beginning. Your karma creates you. That's your house builder. You are the heir of your karma. All right? So that's why the other thing which people again get confused is, Dr. Wong, if it is in that case, they ask, if that is the situation, then how do we share merits? Oh, okay? Because we say, oh, we do a very good deed. And now after we have done this very good deed, we are going to share merits with all beings. But Dr. Wong just said karma is individual. We are the heirs of our karma. So how do we do these good deeds? How do we perform these good deeds? How do we so-called share merits? And that's important for you to understand. Because at a funeral, for example, you often will say, oh, by these merits will so-and-so be born in a happy realm, etc., etc. These words are all familiar with you. And then we will ask the son or the daughter, oh, please offer on behalf of your parents or whoever to the Sangha. Or please make a donation to this building fund or to the printing of this book on behalf of this person. So what is important when we do that is that one, the person whom you are making a donation or offering a robe or doing whatever, he must be conscious of it. If he is not conscious of it, then that act is not going to be very helpful. Because if, let's say, I have passed on, okay? Let's say I have passed on. And I know that my children are now saying, oh, Papa has passed on. But I can do something that Papa really will be very happy with. And that is, I'm going to offer lunch dana to the monks at Ulutiram on behalf of my father. Okay? So bring his picture along, etc. And if you say, on behalf of my father, I'm making this lunch dana to the Venerable Sangha. Okay? Now, if I am aware of that, I'll be so happy that, oh, my children are so well trained that even when I'm gone, they are doing something like that. It is like saying you have got children overseas, far away in Australia, and it's your birthday. And they say, oh, Mommy loves this charity or whatever. And we say, oh, Mommy, it's your birthday. You know that we have actually gone there and made a donation in your name to this charity? Oh, you'll be so happy. So in doing that, the person actually generates his own karma. He generates his own happiness. So that is why it's often said, if the person is completely unaware, then that deed will not be very useful. And so, let's say now we do another thing, and then we say, oh, at the end of this, let's share merits. How do we share merits? I told you, you can't give your karma away, good or bad. You can't. Karma cannot be divided like a pizza. But what do we do at the beginning? Why is it in traditional temples we ring a bell, gong? You come to Metta Lodge, everything we do when we start, gong, 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 right? Why do we do that? And that's because when we do that, in theory at least, we are inviting devas, unseen beings, to come and participate in this puja, or this sharing of Dhamma, or this offering to the Sangha, whatever it is. Okay, so we do it so often, after so many years, they are conditioned, they hear the gong, they know already. Okay? You know. Okay? So we say, you rejoice in this good act that we are doing. All right? So if they are aware of it, yes, they rejoice in this good act. And so they create, in other words, what we are saying is, we are sharing happiness. We are sharing happiness. So if, let's say, Brother Sun Kit's children are doing very well in their exam, okay, and we say, Mudita, we rejoice that his children are doing so well. Okay? I'm not the one sitting for exam. His children sat for the exam. But I rejoice that they are doing so well. And so similarly, if I am gone and I'm a hungry ghost floating around somewhere, and then I see, oh, Brother Eddie is doing such good things, and Brother Eddie is saying, to all my departed friends, to all my departed relatives, may you please anumodana, share in these merits. And I say, okay, at least something I've done in Buddhist fellowship has carried on, it's not all wasted. And I'm happy. I create my own merits. All right? So this is, as I said, the 4 things that are very important. Ignorance, yes. For example, now we shared, we hope that this is lesson. And when this is lesson, of course, your sankhara should ultimately, with time, change in a way. Right? Our ways of behavior change. We may not be so greedy. We may not be so pacha anymore, whatever. Okay, then of course all these will change. Then craving will lessen. Attachment will lessen. Our karma is good. So even if you don't become enlightened, hopefully the jati, the birth, will be good. You built a good, strong house. You built a good base. All right, sister? Thank you.
Another question?
Good afternoon, Dr. Wong. Yes. Just now we mentioned about the consciousness as it passes from this life to the next life and things like that. So the consciousness is not exactly the same consciousness. But then when we understand about the 4 elements, those are the 4 that actually stays around all the time. The 4 elements, they are there all the time.
The 4 elements merely refer to the 4 physical states.
Yeah.
It's basically physics. The state of solidity, the state of fluid, the state of gaseous, and temperature. That's what the 4 elements refer to. They don't refer to consciousness.
Oh, so they're saying the 4...
When we say earth, okay, when we say water, when we say fire, okay, all these are analogies that the people of that period could understand. So when the Buddha say, oh, Patawi, earth, solid, or we sit and we say solid, that you're referring to the physical state, like water. When it becomes cold, it becomes ice. It is solid. And then when the water gets warmed up, it becomes liquid. And then you heat it up some more, it becomes steam. And what is the main thing which is driving all of them in these various states is temperature. So the 4 elements that we talk about actually refer to the 4 physical states that all of us in the physical world exist in, or a combination of. It's not actually referring to the consciousness. Consciousness is always dependent, is always changing. You're always conscious of something.
So there is always consciousness.
Consciousness only arises when there's an object. When there's no object, there's no consciousness. Only when there is an object is there consciousness.
What about space?
Space is space.
It's all the time there.
Yeah. Space is
so these 6 forms are always in existence?
They describe physical states.
All right.
They are not referring to consciousness. Consciousness is a thing which we think is like a soul that will just go on and on and on and on and on. But it's not. Consciousness is something that arises when there is an object. When there is no object, for example, like tomorrow I'm going to share with you what happens to the Arahant who dies. His consciousness becomes unestablished because now there is no more object for him. And the analogy the Buddha used 2,600 years ago is a fire not blown out but extinguished because of lack of fuel. There is no fuel for that fire, and so that fire disappears. So that is why that is very interesting, because it's talking of, in our world, we are talking of this is the dimension of space and time. And in physics, they talk about beyond space and time. What happens when something beyond space and time? And if you look at the Buddha's descriptions of Nibbana, it is literally like what my understanding of beyond space and time is.
So does the chitta stays? Are we referring to the chitta?
Chittas will come, go. Chittas is mind state. Okay? They are always changing. None of them is permanent.
But there will always be chitta.
As long as you're alive, yes.
Oh.
As long as you and I are alive.
When we are dead, it's gone?
Nope. When you're dead, the chitta transforms into
Goes
another
on,
one.
yeah.
It's only when you die after awakening, when your consciousness is no longer established. There is no more basis for the establishment of consciousness. Then your consciousness is in a state which we have no words to describe. Because there is no more object, no more sensation, no more arising, no more cessation.
So is there awareness then?
No.
No.
Okay? Sister Eileen.
Last question.
Oh, yes. Just wondering, for the dependent origination, is it possible to say that it happens in an instant?
Yes, there are a few schools of thought. One school of thought, which is actually based on the Visuddhimagga, which is a non-canonical work, looks at it as 3 lifetimes. Okay, so that has been in the Theravada school quite a traditional viewpoint that looks at it as 3 separate lifetimes.
Oh, no, actually I was talking about how in an instant, as in when we meditate, we see the begin and the end of things arising and disappearing.
Yes, you can see that in meditation.
Yeah, so basically when you see an object like a candle or something, I guess when you close your eyes, it disappears. So, I mean, is it possible to realize anatta through cutting off at any point of the 12 links to understand and realize that there is no self in that sense? Like, if we see begin and end of things enough, then I guess it helps us to let go of
the
attachment.
perception of impermanence is one of the steps to the realization of anatta.
Yeah.
Because when you can perceive anatta repeatedly, then you realize that there is no permanent thing, including this. Okay? Yep, you're right. But just now what I was saying is that there are scholar monks who do not look at dependent origination as 3 lives. They look at dependent origination as in this life, moment to moment to moment to moment, that we are always being reborn at every moment. And a very famous venerable who thinks in that line is the late Venerable Buddhadasa. He wrote books and books about it. Okay, but of course not everyone agrees with that view,
Yeah.
Okay.
So the 6 realms of existence actually, I guess it depends on doing good, you go to hell. Doing good, you go to heaven. Doing bad, you go to hell, and you have the other realms.
That's very interesting because I used to think of the 6 realms of existence as mental states.
Yes.
And until very recently, I still look at them as mental states, like what the late Venerable Buddhadasa speaks. Then I was start reading about physics, and I was reading about multiverses. That it is possible in this very difficult to understand principle of physics, that the universe is not what we see, but that there can be multiple universes existing simultaneously, what they call the principle of multiverses, and that death becomes a portal into various universes. That to me, of course, as a non-physicist was something that went, wow, how do you understand that? But you can Google it yourself. It's called biocentrism, okay? And there's a very eminent scientist who does a lot of work on it, and he explains that people do not die. From the viewpoint of physics, none of us ever die because he said energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It merely transforms. But this one scientist goes on a step further to say that when you actually die, at that stage of transformation, you may not even be in this universe. You may, in fact, enter the portal of another universe, what in physics is called multiverses. Uni means one. We understand it as uni. But he says that in physics, it is possible to have multiverses, and that death is not the death that mortal man sees, but carrying on transformation of energy into these various multiverses. Of course, when I read that, I say, wow, okay, that's very interesting. That's very consistent with traditional Buddhist belief, but frankly, I have great difficulty understanding it. That's why I was hoping there will be somebody in this room tonight who is a professor of physics or quantum physics that can share this a little bit more with us. All right? Because it is a difficult concept. Will you be able to share anything on multiverses?
Oh, no, I've got no idea.
Okay, you can Google it yourself. Okay, biocentrism, multiverses. There's a brother there who wants to ask a
Thank you.
question.
Okay, last question.
Dr. Wong, can you elaborate on this near-death experience with respect to consciousness?
Okay, near-death experience. Actually, the Buddha has a very nice discourse which addresses this. Offhand, I can't give you the name of the discourse. As I grow old, I have very bad memory for names. I have to be the first to confess. But then I realize I'm not alone. Many of my friends are also like that. So I feel better. For example, I have university classmates who passed on. And so that night, I had university classmates who came to visit in JB. So we had dinner. And we say, who is the name of that one who passed on? And we think, and we realize that none of us can remember. Then we say, since all of us can't remember, we are normal. But yes, near-death experience, the Buddha gave one discourse in which he actually described this, and he was using the example of a fire. How when you see a fire, sometimes you have these sparks which goes, and then he said some sparks get carried by the wind over a long distance, some sparks come a short distance. What he was actually saying is, in short, if I understand that sutta correctly, he was actually describing that this fire with one spark can travel very far, and then before it lands on the ground. Okay? And so, of course, you know what causes the fire is heat, combustion, etc. And then the person to whom I was explaining was asking, if this fire, this spark that comes on, I wouldn't say it's spark, what do you call that? You know what I mean, the thing which comes out and everything, you fly a long distance. And this person asked, what is the fuel that leads to this long distance before it goes off? Because you say that consciousness arise and fall, arise and fall. And the Buddha replies that it is craving. Craving is what gives rise to this long, long flow. Okay? Now that's very interesting, because we say that what drives the consciousness in an intermediate state, actually intermediate state is in the Nikayas. Although conventional Theravada belief based on the commentary say death, instant rebirth. But if you look at the Nikayas, there is actually description which suggests an intermediate state. And what the Buddha said drives this state is craving. So now, the Chinese believe that everyone who dies will come back as a ghost. Okay? And I actually believe that the Chinese are right. Because when one of our dearly beloved dies, what do? Don't die, don't die, don't leave us, don't leave us, don't die, don't die. And what's going to happen to this? What's going to happen to that? We create a lot of conditions of attachment. And when you have a lot of attachment in a person who passed away, in which realm will he be reborn? In a hungry ghost realm. Because that's the only realm which is around here, in which he's still conscious, in which he can still see you all, in which he can still literally hang around. Okay? So we create that condition for them. So the Buddha said it is craving which determines this state. So even in the arising and falling of consciousness, in that intermediate state, it is actually craving which drives it. Now, if you read my book, you will see that I have a long record of one of my medical colleagues who had a near-death experience. And what she described is very much in tune. She's not a Buddhist, by the way, but what she described is very much in tune with what is taught in the Buddha Dhamma. She described, I thought of my husband and my family, and suddenly I was back. Okay? So, yes, some of these events may be created by hallucinogens. Some of these events may be true. It's very hard for us to tell which is which, but there is probably some truth in all these near-death experiences. And if you listen to Dr. Peter Mack, for example, he has so many accounts of what happened to people in between one life to another life, between one life to another life. When you have so many accounts, even if, let's say, only 1/3 of them are true, it is actually enough to establish truth. Okay? Of course, many people believe it is due to hallucination, due to lack of oxygen, etc. And I agree, some of them may be, but probably not all of them. Okay? So, how to have a good death? Have a very good life. If you have a very good life, then you do not have to worry about a good death. The good death will come naturally. All right, brother?
Thank you.
It's in the book, so please read the book.
Actually, this segment, people near death, and some people have a Chinese written, it's called 中阴身, in between.
Yeah.
And then during this period, normally, we call it in the space a magnetic field. This magnetic field normally is bring you out. But suddenly there's a change of that climate, like temperature, they suddenly suck you back. Yeah.
Well,
And very rare this thing happen.
Bhante Sujata says he's walking between two rooms, you're in the corridor. I thought that's a pretty good description.
Okay, I think we can stop here for tonight.
Thank
Thank you, Dr. Wong. And just some